right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast where I bring in the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth and endurance. Wait till we get to this one. So we can help you harness your own inner tenacity and drive your life and career forward, folks. My guest today on the podcast is Angus Collins, the most successful ocean rower on the planet. Jeez. And a man whose life story reads like a movie script. Born on the island of Guam, raised between cultures, Angus has crossed some of the world's most dangerous oceans, shattered world records, and turned physical endurance into both art and therapy. He's rode the Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific, raced rickshaws across India, and trekked through the jungles where he once dined on banana spiders. I'm curious what those taste like. But behind the accolades is a man who faced his darkest battle, not at sea, but alone on a boat, on the verge of ending his own life. This is some serious shit, people. We're going to get into it. Now, Angus is preparing for his most personal and grueling mission yet, to be the first person to row solo and unsupported around mainland Great Britain, 2,000 miles of punishing waters, all to raise over 250,000 pounds for James's Place, a charity that helps men in suicidal crisis. And he's not just rowing for a record. He's rowing for redemption, purpose, and to shine a spotlight on mental health, masculinity, and resilience. This is going to be real. Let's get to it. Angus Collins, welcome to the podcast, man.
God, I need you on my boat just to give me that positivity as I go around. Thank you.
I love, and I rewrite the intros. Like you get the bios from the guests, and I'm like, people just read this. I'm going to rewrite this. Thank you, ChatGPT, for making. So, Angus, welcome to the show. I had the pleasure of experiencing Angus at Will Goddard's Welcome Conference back in September in Lincoln Center, and this dude blew me out of the water, literally and figuratively, in all different ways. So, listen. You go on a million shows. You've talked about the rowing stuff, but we're gonna dig into the mental health piece today. I think this was most critical to break down the stigma there. But I want to level set everybody here, and this is a question I ask every guest. If you don't mind me asking, Angus, what did your parents do for a living?
They were scuba diving instructors. So it kind of, as a family, we're better on the water than we are on dry land. So yeah, parents were scuba diving instructors, which is why I was born in Guam. And then, yeah, my uncle was a professional sailor. Grandpa was a world champion sailor. So yeah, as a family, we're made on the water.
Made on the water. So you were born with flippers on like a duck. You were probably in the water before you were walking.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I get land sick. I'm much better when I'm bobbing around, a couple of feet above the water, rowing or sailing. That's my happy place.
Land sick. How old were you when you did your first kind of solo, like even went like on a little rowboat or a kayak by yourself? Do you remember that first time you were out on the water by yourself where your parents were like, boop, we're going to push you out there?
Yeah. And actually, I'm not a natural and I didn't enjoy it. I can remember my first couple of times sailing. I'm based in the UK. So envisage you're going out sailing really excited, but then you look outside and it's hammering it down with rain. We hadn't seen the sun for 6 or 7 months. So yeah, it was, I hated my first couple of times in the water, but then I realized that actually it's a really good way of exploring. And because my family were nautical, they would say, cool, here's a little boat, off you go. And I could just disappear for hours on end, and I absolutely loved it. And that's kind of my peaceful place.
Do you remember even at that young age, out on the like what was like if you're gonna put an age mark on it, like 6, 7, like when, like how old are you when you were out there? Do you remember the solitude and like the first time you were alone with your thoughts?
Yeah, I can remember I was probably aged 7, 8.
Yeah.
Being on the water and being quite nervous and anxious, thinking this is kind of the first experience I've had on my own doing something that I'm kind of out of control of. But then realizing actually it's a beautiful place to be, and actually feeling comfortable being uncomfortable.
It's such a massive lesson at such a young age. And do you have kids?
I do, yeah. 2 kids, 9 and 7 from my partner's previous marriage, but I'm very much treating them like my own. And I've got the advantage being the stepdad that I can just be the naughty one that teaches them all the things that we shouldn't teach our kids, but they're going to learn at some stage. And I've actually just finished reading a book with my eldest called A Girl Who Rode an Ocean. So I'm slowly recruiting my eldest to jump in a rowing boat with me when she's 18.
So have you pushed them out by themselves yet?
Not quite yet. After I get my next expedition done, I'm going to start pushing them pretty hard. And One of them's very sporty, and I think she'll love it. But for me, you learn so much through sport, whether that's with a team or on your own, just being outdoors. It's such a great way to learn. And actually, the kids moved from a French school 18 months ago. In the French school, they don't do a lot of sport. And then moved into an English school, and now they're doing a whole load of sport. And I've just seen them mentally mature so much since they've taken up sport and communicated as a team. So yeah, I love it.
There's so much power to that too, and just being like the digital detox, right? And you talk about it, describing as rowing the ocean a kind of an extreme digital detox when you're stripping down to life. It's just sleep, rowing, repeat, right? Like, what are the positivities to lock you in a good mental place when you have that routine?
Oh, it's such a lovely feeling that I kind of start off a little bit anxious about it, thinking, oh, have I missed an email that I'm not going to be able to respond to for 40, 50 days? Or have I paid all my bills and all those kind of things? But once you then get used to it, and for all the crossings I've done so far, I've always been in a 4-man team. And not having your phones and not worrying about how many likes you're getting on Instagram and who's doing what.
Right.
The connection you then make with your teammates is so much stronger than what we're experiencing on a day-to-day. And I'm not saying that you have to row across an ocean with some friends to really understand them. But yeah, that feeling of the only thing that is important right now is you guys that are on the boat with me, my emotions, and what the weather's doing. That's all we've got to worry about. And you just become so dialed in and open to things changing because they're the only parameters that are important.
It's interesting. I'm having a flashback from your keynote at the Welcome Conference, where you were showing pictures on the screen of these incredible tight quarters and how much you rely on each other. And I'd love if you could just share a little bit, like, how did you manage? There's conflict, right? There's arguments, there's conversations, there's productive arguments, there's personality arguments, and you guys are in a sardine can floating around the ocean. Like, there ain't much room for give on that. What are some of those best practices that you learn on how to deal with those interpersonal team relationship issues?
Yeah, it can be the worst place in the world as well when something does go wrong.
Nowhere to go.
Yeah, for context, so these boats are 9 meters long. So we're looking at 28, 29 foot, 4 people, 2 cabins, 1 at each end. So your living area where all 4 of you can meet is probably 3 meters by 1 meter wide. So
it's tight.
Yeah, there's no running away. And actually, I think a lot of the confrontation preparation happens a long time before you step on the ocean. So I do a lot of scenarios at sea where whilst you're on dry land 6 months or a year before these expeditions, you're trying to go through everything that could go wrong and then answer that with 4 different individuals and see, right, you've answered it this way, you've answered it that way. You're definitely thinking a lot more emotionally. You're thinking a lot more technically. Right, let's have that conversation now whilst we're all kind of semi there. Because if we try and have that conversation when everything's going wrong,
stressors,
it just blows up. So I think that's the main thing that I think I've been pretty good at, is prepping all of my teams and the teams that I've been part of to have those conversations beforehand. So when it goes wrong, you know what the answer is. But inevitably, you're going to have moments where there are things that
shit goes out the window, man.
Yeah. And I had a really tough experience. My second Atlantic crossing, we had one teammate get really badly seasick. And we wanted him to miss a shift to sleep it out so that he would get healthier and better. But you couldn't have that conversation with the other teammates because he was always there. So I remember having to write notes. We have an iPad on the boat for all of our navigation. So I'd write notes on the iPad and then have to pass that to my rowing partner,
so they could read the notes,
to answer for 2 hours because he's rowing, and then he would give it back to me. So to have an actual conversation takes 12 hours on an iPad. So, and it's really hard to get it right when you do it that way, which again is why it's all down to that preparation in beforehand, how do you communicate as a team, which is the most important part.
I mean, listen, every good plan goes out the window once you're dealing with weather and other natural disasters out there, but it's also about, stress management, and you're leading this. So you have to set the tone. So how do you find the ability to, we don't want to park our stresses, but how do you rechannel them? How do you rechannel them to be productive when you don't have a choice? Like, this is life and death.
Yeah, it can be life and death, or it can just be, I need to get to the finish line one day earlier because I am
Whatever.
hating this experience.
I need to get the hell off this boat with you
Yeah.
guys.
And it's trying to. I've had quite a few teams, so I train teams, or used to train teams to row across oceans as well. Then you're going to have that moment mid-ocean where you just want to throw all your toys out the pram, and you want to blame the person who's telling you what the weather's doing. You want to blame your teammates. You want to blame your sponsors, the boat builder, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you can stop, but you're not going to get to the finish line any quicker. There's no way out once you're in the middle of the Atlantic in a 4-man rowing boat with your 3 teammates. The only way you're getting to the finish line is by rowing. So I've had strops mid-ocean. I've thrown my toys out the pram, and I think it's acceptable to do that. But then for me, my big thing is breathing exercises. It's getting back in the cabin, get my breathing regulated, break down.
Focus.
Why am I thinking differently to everyone else? Why is no one seeing it the way that I'm seeing it? Or is it just that actually I need to get a bit more sleep, or I need a little bit more food? And they're really the only things that we can offer. And 9 times out of 10, you drink a liter of water, get 1,000 calories in you, and get an extra 10 minutes of sleep, and you come out of your cabin, you go,
All right.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
I've just been a prick for 2 days, but I'm back.
That's part of it, though. So let's pivot in. I want to get into the breakdown here, because now we're going to get into the real shit, Angus. Here, and I mean, you stood on the brink, like literally preparing to end your life and then choose life. And keep the story straight here. What was that moment? What was that moment where was it cumulative? Was it a buildup? Where, let's take us through the breakdown, because I think there's so many lessons here for men to learn, the warning signs for themselves, and almost more important, well, equally as important is their friends, to look out for them, and not just
Yeah.
saying, like, sometimes it's as simple as, "Hey, are you okay?" and not taking yes for an answer.
Yeah.
What is it?
So for me, and I'm still trying to work this out now, 5 years later, I think it was a gradual build up. And I think that was almost why I didn't really notice it as much, because it was slowly increasing. And I had kind of hit that stage. So it was on my 30th birthday that I actually attempted to take my own life. And at that stage, I had 4 world records in my sport. I was running a pretty successful business, building ocean rowing boats. I was delivering talks on leadership, and everything was perfect. And I wasn't feeling perfect, and I couldn't understand why. Like, I had good friends. I've got a really secure family. I've got, as I say, I had a good business, and everything was right. And I just didn't know why I was feeling low. I didn't know if it was something that I was doing. Did I have to blame somebody else?
Well, pause on that for one quick second. What did low feel like for you? Because everyone's low is different, right? Everyone's calibration is different. Like, where was the low?
I think 2 things I noticed massively was, I'm generally a pretty driven guy, and quite friends laugh at me because I'm quite not efficient entrepreneur, but I'm quite entrepreneurial. I come up with ideas a lot, and I had no imagination. I had no desire to try and make change. The business that we had was growing, but I was happy at kind of plateauing, and that had never been me before. And that was kind of the first tell for me, was I'm not interested in bettering myself or anyone around me. That was kind of the start. And then it got to the stage where I really struggled to socialize, and it became a massive effort. And generally I've been a team player, and I loved having my friends around. And actually whenever anyone said, right, it's my birthday, do you want to come down to London? We're going out
First
for
to
some
go.
pints. I was just straight away was what excuse can I use to not be there? And then I realized it'd basically been 6 months before I'd even seen a friend. And I was lying to family members, telling them that I was with friends, and lying to friends, telling them I was with family members, where actually I was just sitting on my boat. And I had a pretty unhealthy habit of smoking way too much pot, which I think for some people it can be fine, but for me it doesn't work. And yeah, I then used that to mask any of my downsides and my emotions that were playing up on me. I'd just smoke another joint and fall asleep, and I didn't have to worry about it.
It was your release, and so the key lessons here, for going back there, and we are not, just a caveat here, we are not trained mental health professionals. We're not experts. We're just commenting on our own personal experiences here. But I think a big telltale sign is pattern change with you and your friends. When you see the pattern changes, when someone who's active with their friends and they become a recluse, those are things to notice, to check in. Um, and it's tough because we live in this world of this stigma, right? That men are supposed to be strong and they're supposed to be putting on this outward face. But I really truly think that we're living in this more modern world now where it is encouraged and socially acceptable to make that change and break down those stigmas of our parents and how you're supposed to be manly in that certain way. Did you have those friends that checked in on you? What happened then?
Yes, but I was very good at lying to them.
Ah,
I had a few friends that were good at checking in, but because at this stage it was completely out of the blue for people.
right.
They had no
There was no signs for
no
them to even think it, right? They weren't like, that
no
wasn't top of mind for them. Maybe they're like, shit, he's in between races. He needs a little downtime, versus seeing this as an issue.
exactly. Whereas now, because I still have my ups and downs now, so
Mhm.
when I do go quiet on my friends, they now know, cool, I'll give him a week, and if he doesn't respond within a week, I'm
Check in.
driving down and I'm going to find him.
Hmm.
Whereas then it was very much like, okay, well, he's got a startup business. Maybe he's busy with that. He's busy with
Head down.
expeditions. And that's why I think, like, it's one thing saying we need to have friends around us. It's another thing saying we need to be consistent with those friends for that exact reason. Because I've got friends that I haven't checked in on for
Well,
six
yeah.
months, and you can't treat every friend exactly the
No, but
same.
you have your closest friends. You have the ones that you know are going to count on. We all have, most of us have. But take us to that moment. Take us to the lowest moment where you actually questioned taking your life.
Yeah, I felt, because for like my family and my friends, because I've been considered the mentally strong one, because in these endurance challenges, we say that
They would
80%
assume you
of
are, right? This guy's the strongest.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and yes, I am mentally strong in some aspects of my life, but other aspects, not so much. So I felt guilt was my big thing. I was like, if I go to my friends and tell them that I'm struggling, I would then be taking their support network away from them, because I'm the one that normally helps them. So
Ooh, that's heavy, dude. That's some heavy
yeah,
shit right there, man.
and same
Like,
with
you're supposed to be the strong one. Now you need them to be the strong one, so you felt guilty about that?
yeah, I
That's
felt
fucked
guilt
up.
that, yeah, I know that my mum was going through a divorce and she wants to be able to talk to me about that. Well, if I tell her what's going through my head, how can she then talk to me about what she needs my help for? And so I felt, I can remember it very vividly on that day, thinking the best way for not only me, but for my friends and my family, for them to not be affected by my depression, is for me to just not be here. And it made complete sense in my head, which, saying out loud
You
now,
rationed it.
yeah,
That's crazy, man. I mean, you said, quote, "I feel guilty that I had depression." I mean, why do you think in particular high achieving men struggle with this guilt? Is it
yeah,
because what you said? Because people expect you to be the one on point, the good one?
yeah. And another thought that was going through my head a lot at that time was, I worked with a team. They rowed across the Atlantic, and they only had 3 legs between the four of them,
Hmm.
all ex-infantry guys, and had their battles in Afghanistan. And I remember thinking, and I try and say this in the most positive way, but they have earned depression or PTSD. Like
They've accrued it from their employment and what they do.
Like it's almost to be expected.
Right.
So then I was like, I haven't earned this. Everything I have done is easy, and not easy, but is going to plan, and my life is good, and my friends are good, and everything is positive. So I haven't earned this. Therefore, the easiest way out of it is to not deal with it.
Who saved you from the brink?
It was actually cannabis. I smoked too much just before I had everything set up, ready to go.
So went into paranoia. It led into you went down that rabbit hole.
I actually just passed out, and I just woke up the next morning, actually Monday morning, ready for work, and there were clients that I was meant to be working with, and I could hear them walking past my boat, and I just snapped out of it and right, I've got to get back to work and I can't let anyone else down. And I refused to acknowledge what had happened.
Wow.
It was probably a couple of weeks. And then I went on to try and get some help, which was a disaster as well.
Why? What happened? Who'd you reach out to? And I know mental health systems are different in different countries and stuff, but who did you reach out to? Was it a professional? What was that?
Yeah, professional. I'm reluctant to say it, but I'm going to say it because it's important to be honest. But so in the UK, we have a free healthcare service called the NHS, and it's taxpayers' money. So anyone's got any problem, they can get help free of charge. And I rang up the NHS and explained that I'd had this suicidal period and I'm still struggling with, I think, depression. And I basically had that exact conversation with a psychiatrist that turned around and said, you've got a great family, you've got a good business, you've got good friends, you're traveling the world, you've got nothing to worry about. And I just remember bursting out into tears and hung up the phone, just thinking, that is exactly why I'm calling you.
You didn't do shit for me.
Yeah, I know all of these things, and that's actually what makes me feel guilty. And then I went silent. I didn't talk to anyone about it until I met Elsa, who's now my wife. She heard me doing a talk about resilience and building resilient teams, and she basically called bullshit. She said, I don't believe it, Angus. There's got to be something else as to why you're doing this. And she's got a high EQ. She read me and basically said, if you're going to carry on this relationship, you need to open up to your friends. You need to go and see a professional. And that's when it started getting better for me.
Let's just talk about the power of a strong partner. Let's just talk about that for a moment. Let's just talk about having the people that are closest to you in your life being able to be as open as possible, and for them to see those warning signs and to not cover it up. And I think you talk about this, I call it emotional agility a little bit, because if I'm trying to help a friend, it doesn't make sense to come down all the way to their level. You have to stay a little bit above them so you could find a place to help them, right? Because if you come down, you're just sympathizing and empathizing with them, versus being a little bit higher and having that emotional agility where, yes, I can sympathize with you, but I'm also here to help and watch. And to have a partner like that who dude, I've been married for 15 years, been with my wife for 17 years. She calls me on my shit. Even now, I'm going through my own health stuff right now that I'm dealing with. She doesn't give me any wiggle room. And there's times when I'm like, no, give me a little wiggle room. I'm dealing with some stuff here. But then it's the accountability. And I think that is the key with any partner in accountability, to check in, to make sure you're doing what you need to do in a good way, because you're a team.
Yeah.
You're a team and have that. And I think that's so critical and lucky for you that you got the help. So just to level set everybody now, where are you in your own mental health journey? Are you getting back to where you need to be? How close are you, Angus?
No, I wouldn't say I am. I very much ups and downs. And actually, I had, after that episode, I'd say a pretty good couple of years. And then probably about a year ago, I started to go back downhill again. And that really affected me, because I thought I had beaten it. I thought I had won. And like, cool, the old Angus is back. And then suddenly it was, oh no, this is probably something you're going to struggle with for the rest of your life. And you're going to have to continue to work on this. And it doesn't mean that depression's going to win, but it's just like you are going to the gym every day for your training for the row.
Repetition.
You're going to have to do your same thing with your mental health. And once I got my head around that, I actually now feel way more empowered by it than fearful of it. So yeah, no, I'm definitely still ups and downs.
Yeah.
And my aim for this next challenge that I'm going on was to have a lot of answers for people. I wanted to make it quite an interactive campaign and talk about beating depression. And now I've come to terms with, actually, I haven't beaten depression. I still suffer on and off, but I can still be just as vocal about it. And that on its own, I think, is actually the lesson, that talking about
Amen.
it is the biggest medicine we have.
Right. You have this incredible platform as someone recognizable, as a champion endurance athlete, to be able to use that platform to spread the good word. I mean, that's medicine for yourself.
Yeah, big time. And there is something very selfish about what I'm doing. Like, yes,
No,
I want to.
I wouldn't say it's selfish, man. I think it's using your power for good, dude.
Yeah, and I don't think selfish is bad. I don't say selfish in a negative
If you're
way, but I
using it as a
think,
power.
yes, I am raising money for charity and I'm trying to spread the word, but a lot of it is about, the more I talk about it, the more I have these kind of conversations and I help other people that are struggling. The more I do that, the more I learn for myself. So it's selfish for the right reasons.
Well, it's more about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, if we're using that analogy, right? Like, how could I be my best self so I could spread this word and be better? How could I talk about those signs? How could I help other men and women recognize these signs? And how could I help them with their friends? I mean, you're training others to do this, to live in chaos, right? Like how do you apply the lessons from this journey when now we're flipping back to training mode? Listen, your story's public, people get it. How are you employing those lessons with your students and clients?
Yeah, that's something I struggled with. There's two kind of professional ways for me. I've got the ocean rowing coaching and then the mental health. And I try and completely separate those, because even though your mental health is very important, it's important to have good mental health for endurance challenges. I can't overlap those two areas. So I look at it more like, what resilience training can we be doing for the mental side for the rowers? And then also, what lessons have I learned from rowing that I can implement with people that are struggling with depression? I try not to cross-reference too much. But it's amazing the amount of people that I've met that have done these big challenges that have suffered with depression. And I think actually that is a pretty big sign. Like, if you've got someone who's making big changes in their life and they want to do something extraordinary, they're probably running away from something.
So trying to overcompensate, right? They're trying to like substitute a pain with something else.
Yeah. And for me, that I loved everyone telling me that, world record breaking ocean rower and all of it. But I was running away from problems for 5 years. And now I can see that. And now I've got other clients that I look at and I'm thinking, you say you're here to raise money for charity or whatever it is, but is there something else going on back at home that makes you want to spend 40 days out at sea on your own?
Okay, so let's dig into that, man. Your upcoming solo row around England, Scotland, and Wales. This is going to force you to be entirely self-reliant here. What part are you most afraid of about finding out about yourself on this next one, man? Now we're getting deep. You just thought we were getting deep. Now we're getting into the good shit here.
Yeah, I think
what are you scared of?
I'm scared of my lack of motivation. I'm very motivated by other people. I love being on the team and getting on the oars 2 minutes early and seeing the smile on my teammate's face, knowing that he can get into the cabin and be dry. And that's what keeps me going. I don't actually love the exercise. I don't love rowing at all. I just love being part of a team. Whereas now,
that part bothers me. Everything else I'm cool with. It's the actual physical rowing that
yeah. But now I'm going to be on my own. So I'm just picturing myself at 2:00 in the morning. It's pissing it down with rain. The tide's turned and I've got to get rowing. And there's nobody else on the boat. Like, have I deep down got the willpower to get up and get out and get rowing? And I do believe that I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be taking on this challenge. But right. I know there are going to be times where I just go, you can sleep for another 6 hours and no one's going to know. And so that really worries me, because then you can do that every day.
Now, for anyone out there who's interested, who's anyone out there, I'm sure their question is there, and there's just a technical question. What's your Lifeline support staff? Is there a chase boat? What's the deal?
No, don't have any support boat. So in the UK, we've got something called the RNLI, the National Lifeboat Association. So if something were to go wrong, they will generally be able to get to me within 2 or 3 hours. Other than that, it's satellite telephones, and that's it. I'll be fairly interactive, so I'll be able to send videos and photographs back for social media and that kind of stuff. And that's for the campaign side. But for safety, there's not much there. So all of the safety, similar to the communication that we were talking about earlier, that's all happening now. I'm putting every kind of bit of equipment and
a panic button.
Place. Yeah, big one.
But what are you doing for your own internal panic button on the boat? What are some of these things that you're preparing for yourself? What do you have, like, everyone has, I mean, I'm just making shit up here. Is there like a squeezy toy or something? Is there something that you have that triggers something for you,
For me, breathing and then getting on the phone to someone. So even though I haven't got the physical support, I've got a cool list of probably 4 or 5 friends, and actually some of them are old clients. One of them's a US Marine who's hard as nails, but he's been through some stuff, and we've had a pretty open relationship. And I know he's the kind of guy that I could call him at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, I'm struggling and I'm hating this and I want to give up. And he would tell me to get back on the oars and make sure that I do it. So I think, again, it's having that group of friends or people. And actually that group of people are very different to my best friends.
Yes. That's important, right? This is a different, they have different skill sets and different backgrounds. Because your friends, a lot of times, they'll tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah. And same thing with Elsa. Like, Elsa she knows me better than anyone. But I think if I ring her at 2 o'clock in the morning, there'll probably be too much sympathy. And I don't need sympathy in those times. I need someone to just say, cool, you're doing this. And by doing it, you're going to be saving lives. So get on the oars.
Oh man, so many analogies here. And the one I'm thinking about, I'm kind of going into what I'm dealing with, my physical health. I'm dealing with something, and there's no quitting. You have to get to the finish line, and you have to do what you need to do. And there's going to be obstacles in the way. There's going to be challenges you don't want to do. There's going to be parts of the process that suck, but you have to embrace the suck because you're doing it for the bigger, the bigger goal at the end. Oh man, speaking of this goal, what's James's Place? Why are you doing it? What's it all about?
So James's Place, they an amazing charity. They basically help suicidal men get from the brink of suicide to back up and running and back to work. And it was founded by a family that son died by suicide. Actually, very similar story to me in that he had a great group of friends. He was a great sportsman, smart guy. Everything was going well for him. And sadly, he took his own life. And then his younger brother then rowed against me in the Indian across the Atlantic. So that's where I heard about the charity the first time. And it's a very lean charity. So they've just announced it costs them £1,800, so $2,500 to put one person through treatment from suicidal to end of the process. It's a tiny amount of money in comparison to save a life. So you can see every penny that they spent, and it's going to the right place. So small charity, just based in the UK for now, or just based in England, but hopefully there'll be other charities over on your side of the pond that are doing similar kind of things. Sadly, we are reliant on charities for these kind of things because the governments aren't helping with healthcare and mental health especially.
We need to do. I mean, I think the stigma. The walls are coming down. I mean, I see it with my friends, but I also see. I think it's a generational thing, and I think that it's powerful. I mean, I look at the younger generation, and they're so open there. What are some of those bright spots that you're seeing? What puts a smile on your face for the change of good in mental health? Let's talk positivity.
Can I do one more negative thing first?
Just drop it in there. Believe me, I'm a cynic at heart, man. I'm a cynical New Yorker, dude.
One of the things that I do quite a lot of talks at schools as well. And one of the things that I've noticed is that even though I think we are getting better at talking about it and men talking to men about their health and mental health, I think what we're not very good at is talking to children. And not one of the talks that I've done at these schools, I always ask, the final question I ask is, how many of you have spoken to your dad about mental health? And I'm talking to 15 to 18-year-old kids.
Yeah,
and not one child has stood up and said, yeah, I've had that conversation.
But maybe they're too scared to in that moment in front of everybody.
I'm hoping that is the case.
Me too.
But I kind of feel like there's a fine balance. We need to talk to kids about it. We also don't need to scare them and basically explain that life is hard. Yeah. But we need to educate kids from a young age on what kind of language to use, because my dad has no idea how to talk about mental health. I'm getting better at it, but I still think our generation, we're still going to find it awkward talking about it, probably for the rest of our lives. But that we need to take that on, but let's normalize it for the next generation. So those conversations, they have the language, they have the emotional intelligence to be able to talk to their friends.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. It's making it culturally acceptable and not just acceptable, but encourage to talk about your feelings. Yeah. And you're not a wuss, and you're not this, and you're not that. And it starts with the parents. I mean, I check in with my dad, but we're not getting too deep into it. And as a father of an almost 13-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy who are going through their own adolescence and growing and dealing with the social constructs of school and relationships and all the other stuff that comes with the pressures of being a young kid these days, my wife and I take it very, very important to check in. Social online bullying, body shaming, all the crap that kids watch on YouTube and the brain rot that's out there, just being really mindful of a parent of how that affects them in their behavior and checking in with them. And not just how you're doing, but really checking in and listening and watching. And I'm not saying be a helicopter parent, Angus, but like keep an eye on what your kids are doing and how they're behaving, right?
And just at least arm them with the right questions. Like the more that we ask those questions to our kids, the more likely they're going to ask those questions to their friends. So even if they don't want to answer those questions and don't know how to answer those questions, don't stop asking them, because it will get through.
Right? Like setting an example. It starts at home. Kids imitate what they see at home. They imitate the behaviors. And listen, every household is different, but as parents, we have to take that responsibility. Mental health, it's such a different time and place from when we grew up. It's a different atmosphere. And I generally think the world is more open to it. I think that the stigmas are down. I think there's more resources out there, and we just have to lead by example and use platforms like yours and mine to spread the good word. And that's what we're here, and that's what we're doing all about. So let's bring it home. I got a couple of fun ones, and I got a couple of serious ones. So this is a good one. If I rarely read questions directly, but if your boat had a name that captured your story, not just the road, but your entire journey, what would you call your boat right now? Middle of April 2025.
Resilience, but that's such a cliche. There was a great book that I loved called Rise and Fall and Rise Again of, it was a surfer called Mark Archipelago. But I like the idea, rise and fall and rise again. I feel like there's something there, but it doesn't roll off the tongue for a boat name.
We got to work on that a little bit. But I like the concept.
You were in marketing, so there you go. I've given you the.
I'm just gonna throw it into ChatGPT, dude. I'm not even gonna pretend. I'm gonna feed this whole episode in. We're gonna get you some good names. So when you're not out on the boat, on an adventure, what is keeping you up at night these days, Angus? What's going through your head?
What's going through my head at the moment? I'd say I'm constantly trying to work out what have we lost in the last 20 years, 30 years in society. And I think it's a big part for me is building things. I used to have a boat building business. I got rid of that 5-6 years ago. And only this year have I started building boats again. And I get so much joy out of creating. And I would love to set something up, which is right. Everyone comes down here every Wednesday after 5 o'clock, and we're all going to build something together and learn
Collaboration.
new things. Whether that's we're going to make a knife, we're going to make a boat, a surfboard, whatever it is. And I love that. How do we collaborate with different people? I've got an accountant, a marketing guy, a sports person, an IT guy. Let's all just meet up and talk. And I feel like that is a way to meet other people that are outside of your normal circle. Whereas most of my circle at the moment are only people that are in the adventure world or the endurance world. So we have our similar problems, but I want to hear of the problems that everyone is facing and how are they overcoming it? And for me, that is how do we build that community? And for me, building that community is physically building.
We got to get back to it. We got to get back to putting stuff together, getting people together, taking people out of their element. And I think that people want a challenge. And I
Yeah,
talk a lot about it with my friends too. I'm like, let's just go do something. What are we going to build today? Let's just try something. Even my friends that say, let's just go out fishing. Even if I don't like fishing, maybe I'll just go out to hang out with them
yeah.
and see
I
what's
took up
happening and be
I took
social.
up
I hate
golf.
fishing actually. I actually hate fishing. I think it's
Yeah.
stupid, but that's for me. Right.
Uh,
But it's not even the act of fishing. It's a act of just being with with your dudes, right? Like spending the time with them.
Yeah, I took up golf 5 years ago. I hate it, but it's great because I know I'm going to have 3 hours on the golf course with a friend with no telephone.
Right.
Perfect. So, and it's sad that we have to find time to do this, but it's so important. And yeah, as you say, it doesn't matter if it's fishing, if it's golf, if it's building, whatever it is,
Whatever.
you've got to find some time just to hang out with your mates and actually get away from your phone and be honest and open.
You know, when I was watching the Masters this past weekend, and I always forget that they have a no phone policy, that it is absolutely incredible. I don't know if you call it Sunday Masters, but like you look, everyone is focused, everyone is paying attention, no one's taking selfies, no clicking, no distractions. They're in the moment. And I think we have done this to ourselves in society where we built these distraction tools. We
Yeah,
built these distraction tools instead of getting back to I love any moment. I love concerts where they say put your phones in these, the phone proof bags
yeah.
and everything. Just having that ability to separate and focus is what it's all about. So let's bring it home here. Angus, what is that single greatest piece of advice that you have received that you take action on daily? A mantra, maybe something
Oh.
you wake up.
Daily, I'm not succeeding in what my mantra is at the moment, I'll be honest,
Well, what is
but
it?
be consistently consistent. Um, and I can be very consistent for a couple of months and then I get bored and then I want to try something else, or there's a new bit of tech that I want to try, or a new bit, and I just give up with what I was aiming towards. I would love to just have a stint where it's kind of right. You've done the same thing for 3 years in a row, and you can see that change. But I just get distracted so quickly by something else that's shiny, and that's what I'm trying to get better at, and have been trying to get better at for a while. And I am getting better, but I'm definitely not there.
It's such a juxtaposition, understanding your background and all the time you spend on the boat where it's routine and being locked in versus what you just said. It's mind
Yeah,
boggling.
yeah. My life on the boat is a complete juxtaposition of what I'm like in the real world. On the boat, I'm very clean, tidy, organized. When I'm on dry land, my ADHD just goes and explodes.
Well, that's
Um,
another part too, is right. These diagnosed behavioral, right? Age. It's a behavioral, and
yeah,
how do you adapt to that? How do you learn to that? How do you recognize? How do you lean into it too? And how do you teach other people? Be like, listen, I'm gonna give you some knowledge. In a moment when I'm acting like this, or you think I'm acting like this is what it actually means, and here's proper ways to respond and engage with me.
yeah,
And the same thing with kids. I mean, I'm learning a lot about that. With my own children is how do you take a reaction that you think would be for what's happening, but really understand what it means and
mm,
respond in a different way that's going to be more productive for that particular person instead of
yeah,
making assumptions.
yeah.
That's a big
Having
one.
a
It's education,
strong EQ, that's a hard thing to learn. Um,
especially as a parent too. Like I think my kid is just acting out, but maybe they're not stimulated. Maybe my little dude is bored right? Maybe he's not challenged enough in school, and
Yeah.
that's why he's acting out in certain cases. And how do you spot those things early on and course correct and give our kids the tools, going back to what you said earlier, to recognize their own, not feel like there's a stigma, and put
Yeah.
themselves in a position to succeed. So let's bring it home here. By all conventional definitions of the word success, you are literally champion, endurance, athlete, rower, sailor. Success. I mean, any textbook definition, you're there for that. But going through this conversation here, going through your life, going through your struggles, your challenges, what you're working on now, working on yourself, I consider that a success. I really do, man. But Angus Collins, 15th day of the month of April 2025, how do you define success?
It's funny because even though, I have succeeded in my challenges, I don't consider myself as a successful person. What do I define success? Or
What do you strive for? What does that look like?
What does success look like for me is I want to get a phone call in a week, a month, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it is, and just be like, I listened to you on this podcast or on a video, whatever it is, and say, and I listened to you, and you saved my life, or you saved a friend's life, or whatever it was. Like, that is, no matter what happens to me for the rest of my life, if I get that phone call, I'm content. And that's where I've kind of transitioned my life out of, right, I want to break records for the sake of breaking records. It's now like, cool, well, I've proven that I can break records. Now, how do we use that to make a difference? And that's now the drive. The record is the tool, but really the important part is, how do we get someone to talk so that we can save lives, because people are dying for no reasons, and it's not acceptable.
It is not acceptable. It is not. So I applaud you in so many ways. I applaud you for using your platform to make a difference, to recognizing the power that you have there, for focusing your time, attention to a cause that's so important. You're doing the right things. You're making the right steps. I applaud you. Angus Collins, I want to thank you so much for your time. I want everyone to check out the fundraising and the website. We're going to link it out. It's GBODYSSEY.com and justgiving.com. We're going to link it up to both of these campaigns there. Angus, where else could folks connect? Where could they learn more?
Instagram, Angus Collins BE. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at social media. It's one of the things I think is probably contributing to mental health problems, but it's up there. And then, the gbodyssey.com, we're going to have an interactive chart so you can see how slowly I'm
along,
rowing around Britain. Please do follow along.
Yeah. How far are you going to be off the coastline?
Parts of it I'll be 100 meters, parts of it I'll be 15 miles. So dependent, but much closer than what I'm used to. Normally I can't see land for 60 days. So
I think that might be helpful for you too, to be able to see that land point, right? To be able to have a focus point out there at times in the daylight,
I think part of it will be nice, but the downside to that is you can see how slowly you're rowing, and you can also see people walking their dogs, eating their ice cream, and you're thinking, God, I'd love to be doing that just right now.
Throw me the ice cream, throw it on the rope there. Well, Angus, I appreciate you, and everyone listening. If this show meant something to you, please leave a review rating. It goes a long way. Sharing means caring. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the socials. The show will be up on YouTube /the podcast once we get out there. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.